In this video, I'm going to be walking you through how to set up your Close CRM, but I'm also going to be doing a bit of a beginner's tutorial as I go, so that if you're new to the process or we've already built this for you and you just want to understand a little bit more, you can jump into this video. Now, we're going to be going over how to create a Close account, the basic settings within a Close account, adding lead statuses, adding pipelines, creating custom activities, and also crafting smart views. So if you're looking for a specific part, you can go to the bottom of this video and there's going to be timestamps where you'll be able to click on the respective part depending on what you're looking for. With that being said, let's get into the setup. So on your screen somewhere, either on the left-hand side or just below this video, you'll see a link to sign up. Now, in all transparency, that is an affiliate link and we do get a cut of that or a commission of that. But that's not really what we're looking for. We're mainly just looking to build a relationship with Close so that we can get better deals for you guys. So if you are open to the idea, use the link. If not, then just go to app.close.com/sign up and you can sign up and you'll be greeted with a page similar to this. So with that being said, let's get into it. On the left-hand side, you've got the 14-day free trial, which you can basically go ahead and use. You type in your first name, which I'll type in here, your last name, and also an email, which I'm just going to type in any old random email here to get set up. Then it's going to ask you for a password. So once again, I'm going to choose a random password and press start my free trial. Once you press that, it's going to greet you with a page like this, asking you to sync your Google or Microsoft. Now, the reason that this is really useful is that if you connect up your Google or Microsoft, you can connect up your main account. You can actually email prospects backwards and forwards, either via Gmail or Microsoft or via Close, and it will sync two-way. So you can see all the communication with a lead. Now, don't worry, you're not going to get all of your private emails imported into your CRM for your team to see. The only time it'll ever import is when you've actually already got a lead in there that matches an email inside of your Gmail. So with that being said, connect this up, connect your email and go through that process. I'm not going to do it in this because I've already got mine connected to my Close CRM, but you should definitely do this before moving forward. I'm just going to click, I'll do this later. Then it's going to ask you to verify your email. So I'm going to do that real quick. Once you've verified your email, it will ask you for your phone number. So I'm going to type in mine here. And then it will say, what do you hope to do during this trial? This is just for Close to connect some information. You can either pay attention to this or just click a random one. Then it'll ask you for your company name. So I'm going to put Acquisition Systems there. My website, I'm going to put acquisitionsystems.com. How big is the team size? Well, that's 20 to 99. How big is your sales team? About 2 to 10. Industry we're in the marketing space. And our leads today, you can just say you don't have any leads in it. Because we're setting up a completely new account, chances are you're not going to be importing all of your leads across. So you can just say, I don't have any leads in it. Then press Finish Setup. And once you've pressed Finish Setup, you're going to be greeted with a page like this. It's going to have an example lead inside of here with all of these different things, which you don't really need to worry about. What we're going to do first and foremost, now that we've set up our Close account, is head into the bottom left and check the settings. Now, just before you continue with the rest of this tutorial, you want to go over to your plan and ensure you're on the enterprise plan. The reason for this is because with the professional plan, we can only get 5 custom activity types, whereas in enterprise we can get 200. Now we are only going to be using about 10, but as you expand, you're going to be needing these extra custom activities to be able to document your sales process. We're not going to talk about the custom activities right now. We'll get into that later in the video, but definitely make sure that you're on the enterprise plan before you move forward. So into the basic settings. If we start in the top left, you've got account, nothing really to worry about here. Membership, nothing really to worry about here. General, I would recommend you change your currency. So select your currency. I'm in GBP. So I'll add this in here. This is when you're like working with a deal and you want to track the deal size. You want to put it in your native currency. Team management, not really much going on the team management. You'll see all your team members inside of here and you can invite users in. I think it's, let's have a look. It's $139 per user. But something that can be useful is the groups tab. So when it comes to filtering down your leads later on, you want to be able to filter by groups instead of just individual people. So let's say you've got 5 setters and 2 closers. You can actually come in here and press new group and call this setters. And then you can add all the respective team members into that group of setters so that when you filter down later, you can actually filter by setters instead of John the setter, right? So that's really useful. You should definitely focus on that if you have got a team coming inside of here. Roles and permissions, definitely set roles, definitely set permissions, but I'm not going to go over that in this video. Custom activities, we're not going to look at right now. Custom fields, we're not going to look at right now. Custom objects, you can check it out if you want. It's in the private beta. I wouldn't really recommend looking into this. I don't see this in many accounts, so I'm not going to put too much focus. Shared fields, this is if you want one field across all users. Once again, I don't think this is going to be super relevant. If it is, if you feel like you need a shared field across all contacts, get in contact. I can teach you how to use it, but to be honest, I don't think it's necessary. Integration links, if we just show an example of what an integration link is, if we jump into, say, the inbox, we find this lead, we click on the lead. If you just click these three dots here and press this, it will Google search that lead name. So let's say you wanted to do some quick research, you could jump in here and you could click on your integration link and it would automatically run a command basically. But we're not going to worry about any of the integration links right now. Google search is pretty much all you're going to use. Scheduling links, 100% connect up your scheduling link. This is so that when you're inside a lead, you can see a bit of a demo here. When you're inside of a lead, you can actually just quickly ping them your Calendly link and they can book a call. So I'm pretty sure you can use whatever kind of link you want. So you can name the link, add the link, and then a description if you need it, or you can just connect with Calendly. We use Calendly personally, so we connect with Calendly, but you could use pretty much any platform here to basically have a shortcut to all your links. Statuses and pipelines, we're not going to focus on right now. Phone and voicemail, definitely add a phone number. Come in here, new number, choose your area code to where you're going to be calling, and then press add information and you'll go through that process. If you're in the US, you will need your A2P10 DLC. I'm going to record a separate video on how to get approved for that, but this is just essentially a registration to send text messages to US phone numbers. We can talk about that in a separate video, but for now, just register your phone number so you've got something in there. Also, pre-recorded voicemail drops, definitely something you're going to want to do, but I will record a separate video on that. Dialer, separate video. Email, for now, definitely configure your email signature. That's important and necessary for you to be able to set this up correctly, because when you're emailing backwards and forwards, you don't want something random in here. You want your email signatures to look quite good, so set that up inside of there. Templates and snippets, not going to worry about that right now. Send as, so if you can add a user to allow to send as you. So let's say you wanted to communicate with the lead backwards and forwards, but your setters were managing the communication. You could allow the setter user to send as you. So that's really useful, and definitely you should add that if you've got your team in here already. Integrations, I recommend you integrate Zoom and Calendly if you use it. That will sync all of your meetings across, so you'll be able to see all your different meetings that are coming in through Zoom, and you can join through Close. So it's really useful there. Accounts and apps, if you haven't already connected your Google or Microsoft through the onboarding process, then definitely do it here. Developer, this is your API keys. There's going to be a whole section on automation later down in these trainings, so you will need this page for them, but for now it's not necessary. The last thing that you're really going to be looking at is the plan page, and down here you just want to turn on Call Assistant services. The reason for this is the Call Assistant transcribes all of your phone calls. So if I want to go and see how a call went with one of my setters who called one of my leads, I'm going to go in here and have the full transcription because I've got this on. It's $50 monthly access fee, super cheap because it goes across all of your users. I don't believe it's per user. And then it's about 0.02 pennies per minute on recorded calls, which I think works out to about $1.20 per hour. Could be wrong there, but that was some quick maths. Before you continue with the rest of the trainings, I just want to put a quick note in and say that everything from this point forward should be used as a template or a base. What we build for you or what we give you advice on may be slightly different to what you see in this video, because every single sales process is different. If I tried to create one video that just catered for every single person's sales process, I think I'd be here for decades. So take our advice and take our setup as gospel. Just use this video as a guide to help you get started with your close journey. With that being said, I'll let you continue on with the rest of the trainings. Now that we've pretty much finished with the basic settings, we're going to be moving on to statuses and pipelines. First and foremost, lead statuses. A lead status represents a lead's current relationship to your company. And it's really useful as kind of like an overview, because if you look inside of a lead, if we just jump into another example lead here, it's appearing in the top left. So it's really useful to have this there at all times. A main mistake that I see with Close users is adding too many of these, because then you kind of have blurred lines between what they actually are. So if we just jump back into this tab right now, potential, always good to have, knowing it's a potential lead that we can contact. Bad fit, probably wouldn't really be putting this in here. I'd more be saying unqualified. That's a whole host better, unqualified and qualified, because then you know that they're very specific is either they are qualified or they're not qualified, not like they're a bad fit. Customer, definitely have that in there so that when we have filter out later on through our smart views, which we'll talk about later in the tutorial, when we filter out, we can basically just exclude customers from all of our smart views, or we can actually create smart views to see only our customers if we wanted to do communication through here. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but it's something that you could do. Interested and not interested, not really looking to have these inside of here. I don't really want to, that isn't necessarily the status of the lead and the relationship that we have with the company. That's more the relationship they have with the product. So therefore, I don't really want to have this as a lead status. Cancelled is fine if you want to have cancelled customers in here to know the status of the lead. But I'd more have that for a specific product level. I can show you how to do that in a separate tutorial. But cancelled, I don't really see too much as relevant. You can just say cancelled client. You would never really have a cancelled call lead status inside of here. That wouldn't make sense. But you'd have potential, qualified, unqualified, customer, client, cancelled client. The only other things that you'd probably have is bad data. So let's say we have a load of leads that we're trying to contact and we're dialing them, and then we dial and it says the lead's name is Zach, but I call through and it says leave a voice message for Steve. We know that's probably the wrong number, so we can mark that as bad data, and then our team can go through and enrich those at a later date. The next thing that I'll be looking to have is DNC, which is we've called this lead 10 times, they picked up, they said please never call me again, I'm not interested, I hate you, you've annoyed me, right? So if we just read this through, we've got potential, qualified, unqualified, or in ours we actually call this not qualified, just for simplicity. Bad data, customer, cancelled client, and then DNC. For naming conventions, I will change this to cancelled customer. And that's pretty much it for your lead statuses. You won't really need to go past this in pretty much any sales process. We don't want to add the status on whether they're interested in a product or the status on whether they showed up to a call. This is purely the lead status and the depending on the relationship with your company, which can only ever be they're a potential lead, they're a qualified lead, they're not a qualified lead, we have bad data and we need to change it, they are already a customer, they cancelled with the company, or we physically can't contact them anymore because they told us to leave them alone. That's pretty much it for lead statuses. The next thing, opportunity pipelines and statuses. Opportunity statuses describe each stage of a deal and should align with your overall sales process. So if you've watched the previous trainings, you will know that we mapped out our sales process previously. That's exactly what we want to add inside of here. So I want to add potential or new leads. That's definitely going to be something because we talked about before, the first step of a sales process is when you get some sort of engagement, some sort of interaction, which will be your new leads. So we're going to have this for every single sales process. This has got demo completed, proposal sent, and contract sent. Not too bad if you do have proposals, but to be honest, I wouldn't see these as necessary steps inside of your pipeline, providing that you're not using proposals. If you are using proposals, you can keep it in there. I'm not going to cancel that one just yet because I'm going to add more. The next thing is going to be your call number one. So for us, it is a discovery call. Just go back to the sales process video and find out like was your call number one? What did I write down as your call number one? It would usually be a discovery call, could be your demo call depending on how short your sales cycle is. But for me, it's the discovery call and we're going to put that down as booked. Now, something I didn't explain in the previous video, but is super necessary to have in here is the outcomes of those calls so that you can see a bit more of a closer look at what status or stage of the process a lead is in. So we're actually going to have discovery call taken. So that's the first outcome of a discovery call is that we took the call. And the other outcome is going to be discovery call not taken, meaning we didn't take the discovery call. Now you're going to repeat this process for the rest of your calls. So if you've got a second call, like a sales call, you're going to put sales call booked. Move this right on up. The outcomes of that call, which is going to be sales call taken. And then again, we're going to have sales call not taken and add that in here. Then you can go ahead and you can delete these. So contract sent we don't need, we can delete that. Demo completed, we don't need that because we have got the discovery call or the sales call taken. So we can actually, if it asks you to replace it, you can replace it for the respective one that you've just recreated. So for me, that would be discovery call taken. And then you've got your outcomes, which we talked about in the sales process. What are the outcomes of any sort of deal? It's usually won or it is lost. That's pretty much it. So that's it for opportunity pipeline and statuses. The other thing you can do is add a new pipeline. So this can be really useful if you want to track like whether the contracts have been sent across or whether you onboarded them yet. So I could call this contract pipeline. And then under here, I could add contract sent and then contract signed and then onboarded. They could be my 3 steps in my contract pipeline, which means if I jump over to my opportunities tab over here, I now see all of my different leads in the different stages of my sales process, whether they're a new lead, whether they booked a discovery yet, whether we have taken a discovery call with that lead, whether we have not taken a discovery call with that lead and they actually no-showed or they canceled the call for whatever reason, whether we booked a sales call with that lead, whether we took the sales call, whether we took it or not. And then you can just come over here and you can enable all statuses. And if you scroll to the right now, you will see won and lost as well. Then when I've actually gone through and I've won the deal, I can create an automation, which we'll talk about later down this process, to actually go from the sales pipeline to the contract pipeline, and I can see all the leads that have closed that are now being onboarded. So that's essentially what we want to create inside of the statuses and pipeline section. We've got our lead statuses, which is all the different statuses dependent on the relationship with the company. And then we've got the opportunity pipelines, which is going to be the sales process, which we mapped out in the previous step and then imported in here. And then a contract pipeline if you want to be able to track your contract progress. The next thing that we're going to be focusing on inside of our close is our custom activities. Now, as the name suggests, custom activities is activities that are completely custom, that either happen inside the CRM or outside the CRM that we want to document. Now, the way that we're going to be using custom activities is actually documenting our whole process from contacting a lead. So even if we're doing cold outbound, contacting a lead, all the way to closing them, which we've pretty much done with the statuses and pipelines. There's just going to be a few extra things that we want to document, like outbound touch points, so that we can have those as basically like a paper trail inside of the CRM. So jumping into custom activities, we're going to jump into the top right, press new activity type. We're going to type in O1. The reason we put O1 is because inside of close, it doesn't actually allow you to order your custom activities. So we want it to happen in the order in which we conduct the sales process. So that's why we put O1 to begin it. And we're going to type enrolled in campaign. Now, this is going to be specific to people that are working with us as a company, working with acquisition systems, because we're going to be doing outbound campaigns for you or doing some sort of outbound messaging for you, most likely. We might be doing ads, but most likely we're going to be doing some sort of outbound messaging. So therefore, it'd be really good to just document the process of enrolling a lead in a campaign so that when we have some sort of activity, which as you know, that's when the sales process starts, which we would consider a response from a cold email, that would be an activity. When we get to that point in the sales process, we have got enrolled in a campaign before that, so we can see it on a lead and go, okay, they were enrolled in a campaign maybe 3 times. So 3 separate campaigns before they ever had any sort of activity with the company. So super important that we add enrolled in campaign. We're going to press save, and then it's going to come to this fields tab. Fields is pretty much like we're creating a custom form where we can fill in different variables to give more information on the enrolled in campaign. So what we're going to have here is, first and foremost, we'll pretty much have this for every single custom activity, is the date of activity. We're going to make that text area rich, and then we're going to make this a required field. Sorry, we're going to make this, I don't know why I said text area rich. We're going to add date and time as that. So this is super important. Demonstration right here is that for the type, you need to be very, very specific on the type that you use, because if you use the wrong type, it's going to be very hard to filter for it at a later stage. Imagine I left that as text area rich, and then every single time we typed in something like 27th of the 5th, 2024, like it's going to be very hard to filter for that. So that's why we need to make sure that it's a date and time and that that is a required field. The next thing that we're going to be adding is what platform were they enrolled in the campaign on. This is going to be a drop-down single select, and this is going to be pretty simple. You're going to have LinkedIn and you're going to have Smart Lead or cold email, right? If you have any other sort of outbound platforms where you're going to be enrolling people in campaigns, this is for not email marketing per se, not you sending out a Klaviyo email where you pump it to your e-commerce list. That's not really what we want to be documenting here. This is more outbound activity for an outbound sales cycle. Where are you going to be contacting these leads? If it's cold calling and you're going to be enrolling them in a cold calling campaign, don't worry, all of your cold calling is going to be moved inside the CRM, and that'll be logged as a real activity, not a custom activity, because Close actually supports that feature. For the custom activity though, an enrolling campaign, the different types of platforms we're reaching out to, I'm pretty sure is only LinkedIn and Smart Lead. Once again, making that a required field and pressing add field. The next thing is going to be the campaign name. So this is really custom to what we are doing, but it allows us to know what was the name of this campaign? What campaign were they enrolled in? What have we categorized this as? Now that's pretty much going to be it for enrolling campaign. If you need any more than that, or we feel like you need any more than that, we will add it to the doc that's either going to be below this video or in the top left somewhere. It will document everything you need in terms of what custom activities you should add and what the field should look like under each custom activity. So after we've done enrolling campaign, the next thing that we're going to be adding is O2 outside touch points. This is us putting a touch on a lead and having a conversation with the lead outside of the CRM. So it's not using our normal email, our normal phone number, or it could be a social media touch point like LinkedIn. So first and foremost, date of activity. Once again, super important that we have that on pretty much every activity that we create. That'll be a date and time field again, and that'll be a required field. The next after that is going to be the platform. So that will be a drop-down single select and all the different platforms that you'll be possibly contacting a lead on. So LinkedIn, email, where else might you contact them? You might contact them on Instagram. You might contact them on Twitter, right? Bear in mind, this doesn't have to be your campaign specifically. So before we were talking about enrolling campaign, we are going to be using this custom activity to document all of the different touch points that are enrolled through that campaign. But you could also have this outside touch point as a custom activity for when you're doing your own follow-ups. So you could have got on a call with a lead, they booked in as an inbound lead, and then they didn't show for some reason. So you wanted to do an outside touch point and you wanted to say, hey, John, why didn't you show up to the call? And you do that on Instagram, for example. You would then document this as an outside touch point and put Instagram. So we can add that field in and make sure that that is required and press add field. The next thing that we're going to be doing is the campaign name. So which campaign did they reply to? Because they could have been enrolled in multiple campaigns in different platforms. So which campaign did they reply to? We're going to make that text area rich. We're not going to make that required because, as I said, we can use this for so many different things that we might not need to put the campaign name in. They might not be part of a campaign. So we can add that in there. Next thing we're going to be adding is the touch point type, which is going to be a drop-down single select, and that's either going to be an outbound touch point or an inbound touch point, right? Because maybe we sent a message to the lead or they sent a message to us and we want to document that in CRM. Because while a lot of people only document the touch points that they do on a lead, it's useful to know when a lead replies, because maybe it needs 4 outbound touch points before there's an inbound touch point, and we can filter for that later down the line based on the way that we are setting this up. So we can say, show me all the leads where there has been 4 outside touch points with the custom field outbound, and then show me any leads that have had that instance with an outside touch point that then is inbound. So you can see 4 outside touch points that receives a response, and you can see how many leads that is and compare that to all the other ones that you've got. So we'll add that field in right there. That should have been required, which I'll just go and change like so. Now, the last thing you can add on this outside touch point, which can be useful, is message content. So if you actually want to document what they responded to, you can copy and paste exactly what you sent inside of here. I'm not going to make that a compulsory thing that you guys have to add because it might not be necessary, but it can be super useful to add that inside of here so that you've got full context on the lead. Press add field there. Now that we've added these kind of 2 touch points, we can start to see how they can work. If we jump over to the inbox and jump into this example lead and then add the custom activities, you can see our 2 custom activities here. So if we press enrolled in campaign, we can see that they're enrolled in their campaign at 1:30 in the morning on today's date, and they were in a cold email campaign, and the campaign name was campaign 1. And then they actually replied to the cold email campaign at 3 in the morning. It was an email, and the campaign that they came from was campaign 1. The touch point was an inbound, and the message said, "Hey John," or "Hey Steve." I don't know why I changed the name, but we're going to go with it. "Hey Steve, thanks for the email. Let's talk." Right? We can now see they're enrolled in a campaign at 1:30, and then they actually responded to that campaign at 3 in the morning saying, "Hey Steve, thanks for the email, let's talk." Now, you'd probably be thinking in your head right now, "Oh, but isn't that an activity? Didn't they engage with the business some way?" Which is 100% right. That is exactly what it is. We're just going to document the touch points and the activities separate so that we can include activities for other things like opting into a Facebook ad. That wouldn't necessarily include an outside touch point, but it would still be an activity. So that's what we're going to be creating next. Back into the settings, back into custom activities, new activity type 03. New activity. Now, if you don't have any outbound and you're watching this video and you're like, "I don't have an outbound process, or I don't follow any sort of outbound processes, or I don't do outside touch points, I only have people opting into Facebook ads," or whatever it is, you would put 01 new activity, and this is where your sales process would really start. So we're going to type new activity, press save there. First thing we're going to do, can you guess? Add the field date of activity. Super important that we keep this in here, and we're going to make this required every single time, and we're going to press add field there. Next thing that we're going to be doing is the platform that this actually happened on. So where did they come from? Now, what I want you to do is look back at when you documented your sales process and go, where do I get all my leads from? Which is what we documented earlier on. It might be from Facebook ads. It might be from a website opt-in. It might be from outbound campaign, right? All of this information. So if we talk about what we did earlier on, we enrolled them in campaign and they replied as positive and they said something good, that would be new activity. We'd then mark the source as they came from an outbound campaign, right? Another thing could be your Instagram giveaway, or it could be a lead magnet, or it could be a case study video. There's so many different places that you can possibly get leads from. You want to add every single one of them into this, saying, "I have got a new activity." They've engaged with the business somehow. That should, once again, my mistake, be a required field. The next thing, now that we're actually starting the sales process, we want someone to be in control or managing this lead, which means we need a lead owner. The drop-down type, or the type that this is going to be, is a user single select. It's very rarely going to be a user multiple select. You kind of just want one person on this at all times focusing on this. So this would be one of the users inside your Close account now working this lead, because we've had that engagement, which means that we can actually start working it, start moving it through the sales process, because this is where it really starts. I'm going to press add field there. Next thing that we're going to be focusing on, once again, is direction. We saw this in a few of the other ones, but direction, drop down single select, not multi-select. That'll be an outbound activity or an inbound activity. Press add field. And then the last thing that we're going to add, which can be useful, is just notes that maybe you add this manually. We're going to talk about how to automate this and how to automate new activities so that when they opt into your Facebook ad or they opt into your website, it automatically comes into your CRM. There'll be a whole automation section later down the line, but maybe you add this manually and you want to add some notes. Say, "Hey, there was a new activity from a lead at an event. They came up to me and they said, 'Hey, I'm really interested in your business. Let's talk.'" You want to add new activity. You want to say the platform or the location of the lead was an event. The lead owner is me, because I'll be working that lead. The direction was inbound. They came to us. I didn't reach out to them in the first place. And the notes under that was, this random man came up to me at an event and asked to buy my stuff, right? So it'd be really useful to have this filled inside of there, which is why we're going to add it. That's pretty much it for new activity. Now we want to start working our way down the actual call process. So all the different calls that you documented. We'll go 04. My first call, like we talked about before, was discovery call booked. We're going to add that in. Press save. The fields that we're going to be adding in discovery call booked is, of course, date of activity. Pretty much needed on every single custom activity that we create. We're going to make that a required field. I've managed to click out of it. Now we've got that in there. The next thing that we'll be focusing on is actually the date of the call that they booked. Super important. We've got the date of activity when they actually engaged with the business, when they booked that call in. So maybe it was 3 a.m. on Sunday and they're in pain and they're like, I just need your service. So they book a call and that is the date of the activity, but they might book it for Tuesday. They might wait 2 days. They might have a christening on Monday where they can't make the call. So they book it in for Tuesday. That is going to be the date of the call, date and time. And we're also going to make this required because every call should have a date underneath it. Next thing is going to be the lead owner. So maybe once the call is booked, we move to a different lead owner. It could be the closer now. We're going to add that in here. We're going to add the source. Now for the source, we are going to have a drop down single select, but this is going to be wherever you've got this discovery call link. So for us, we've got it on our Instagram. We've got it on our LinkedIn. We've got it on our Twitter. We've got it on our website. We got it in cold emails. Where else have we got it? We got it everywhere, right? So all the different places that someone could possibly book a discovery call, we want to add inside of here. Now, once again, in the automation section, there will be a video about how you can automate all of the calls booked from your Calendly into a discovery call booked custom activity, and then making these completely custom. So your Twitter link adds it as Twitter, your website link adds it to website, and LinkedIn adds it to LinkedIn, so on and so forth, through unique tracking links. So we can talk about that in the automation video. For now, just set up your custom activities in the way where you list all the places that you've got that call booking link. Press add field. And then the last thing we're going to be adding is direction. Now you're probably like, how can there be an outbound call booking? Well, if you've got a sales rep who is conversating with somebody, what we want to be doing is, instead of sending the call link across, is we want to say, hey, what time are you free? And we actually book that in for them. We've seen a way higher booking rate doing something like that than sending the link across. So that would then be an outbound booking. Add that field. And there we go. That's all the discovery call booked. We move on to the next step in the sales process, which, if we look back and we go over to our statuses and pipelines, go, okay, we've got the new leads in, which is our new activity. The discovery call booked has happened. Now we need to go for taken and not taken, but knowing that custom activities is like a form and it is something that we can fill in when something happens. What will we include inside of that? Well, that's what we're going to go over. So discovery call taken. What's going to be included when a discovery call is taken? Well, of course, we want the date of activity. When was this discovery call taken? When are we putting this information in? Make this a required field. Then we want to document the date of the call. So when was this call that we actually took? Like, what was the call slot that we had? Require that as a field, date and time field, of course. The next thing is the status, which is essentially just the outcome of the call. You can even change that to outcome if you wanted. Drop down. What's going to happen at the end of a discovery call? Well, I guess we could book a sales call off the back of a discovery call. We could mark them as not qualified, meaning, hey, I took the call, I did the discovery, I realized you're not a fit for our business. The outcome of that call would be not qualified. Then the other thing would be follow-up. We took the call, they are qualified, but we didn't schedule them into the second call, which means we need to follow up with this lead. So I'm actually going to change this just for remembrance, outcome instead of status. Going to add that field in there. Next thing we're going to be doing, which I kind of like to add, is not necessarily more information, but just notes. Like, what were the pain points of the prospect? Add a text area. What were the goals of the prospect? Another text area. Why do I do this? Well, if I am taking a discovery call and then handing it off to a different rep, if I go into my close lead here, as just an example, I add that discovery call taken activity and I go, I took it, the date of activity, I took it at 6:30 and the date of the call was at 6. Where's my time? 6. So it was 30 minutes past. The outcome was that, well, they were booked in for a sales call and their pain points were struggling to generate consistent cash flow. Their goals were make 10K by August. Right? Now, when we can see, okay, they enrolled in a campaign on this date. We had an outside touch point via email with this lead, and that it was an inbound touch point. They responded saying they're interested. you would then typically have a new activity inside of here, and then also a discovery call booked, so that you could see when these calls were booked and when that new activity came in, when this was marked as interesting, when we realized that that was an interested lead. But then after that, you would go, okay, they actually turned up to the call was taken, and they booked a sales call. That's awesome. The pain points was trying to generate cash flow, and they now want to make 10K by August. That's great. We can see all of that information all inside of the custom activity. So the next outcome, well, what if they don't show to the call, which is the exact thing that we're going to be putting in our next custom activity, new activity type, 06, discovery call, not taken. So somebody didn't show to the call, right? Add fields. We'll add our date of call as a date and time field. We'll add the lead owner in, of course, is a user single select. Something that I've just noticed is that we don't have the lead owner on the discovery call taken, so it's really important that we have that. That should be user single select as well. Add that field in, and we'll just want to move that up to here under our date of activity, under our date of call. So we've got lead owner under there. Go back to our not taken. We got data call, lead owner. Next thing that we're going to be looking to add is our status or outcome. This really makes more sense to be a status rather than an outcome because the call wasn't taken. But these are all the reasons that the call wouldn't have been taken. So bad data. Hey, we booked this call in and we actually added the wrong email. Cancelled. This person went onto their Calendly and said, I can't do it. My son has got the flu. Rescheduled. Hey, my son's got the flu, but I'm okay for next week. No show, no communication from the lead, and they just didn't show up, right? That then means if we come in here, back to our inbox, back to the example lead, we add the custom activity of discovery call not taken, and we add it for today at 3 a.m. That was the date of the call. I am the lead owner, and it was a no-show. We can then go, okay, we would say in here that number 4 was booked, discovery call booked, but the discovery call actually wasn't taken, which means we can then create a smart view, which I'll get onto later in the tutorial, of basically like a filter around all of the different leads that booked a discovery call, but they didn't get taken for whatever reason. And we can then follow up and work those leads to get them rebooked in for a discovery call. So with that being said, back into custom activities, we've now got, they're enrolled in a campaign. We did an outside touch point of some sort. They then, of some sort. They then showed some new activity with the business. They engaged with the business in some way. We then got them booked on a discovery call. We then either took the discovery call or didn't take it. Next thing is you're probably going to book them onto a sales call if you have a 2-step process, or it will go straight to outcome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in all of the steps for sales call because we have a 2-call process. And then after that, you'll be doing one lost. So I'm just going to be filling all of that in right now so that you can see all of those details. We'll skip to it. Okay, so if we just take a look at this, we've now got enrolled in campaign, outside touchpoint, new activity, discovery call booked, discovery call taken, discovery call not taken, sales call booked, sales call taken, and sales call not taken. So it is our first activity, which is where we start our sales process and everything moves through, a documentation of everything that happens before our sales process, what our marketing team takes care of, and then everything with our call process, including the outcomes of those calls so that we've got that documented. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into these. Sales call booked, pretty much the same stuff that we've got before. So date of activity, date of call, lead owner, and any notes that we added to that can once again be automated with Calendly. You should watch that tutorial later down the line. You've then got sales call taken, which is the lead owner, of course. Objections I've added as a multi-select drop down. Finances, no objections, talk to partner, think about it, or trust. So whatever objections we can see and just give the closer or whoever it is some more information as to why they didn't close before. Because if you're managing like 100+ leads and you've got 100 calls a week that you're having to take, and you then come back to this lead at a later time, you want to be able to see really quick what their objection was and how you can handle that. And then also the outcome of that call. Did we win it? Did we lose it? Or do we have to follow up with this lead? Because the sales call was taken, right? There should be the only outcomes. Then sales call not taken, very simple, data call, lead owner, and then the status, the same statuses that we had inside of the discovery call not taken. Now, once we've gone through all of our different points, the only thing left is the outcome of the entire process, which is either deal 1. So I'll put in here 10, deal 1. Add a new field. We'll say date 1, which is essentially our activity, date of activity, but we're just saying date 1 now because we won the deal. It's the end of the process. Date and time, make that required field. Will be good to know what time we won it. Maybe it was 3 in the morning, maybe it was 2 in the afternoon. Good to know. The lead owner, so who actually closed that deal, use a single select. Total deal size, really useful to have in here. We'll add that as a number field, so you can add 50 grand total deal size that we've won that for. Then cash collected. Something that people don't know is they go, hey, I mean, I'm closing all these deals for 10K. Why have I got no money in the bank? It's because you're only closing for 2K up front, but your deal size is 100K, right? So cash collected, that's really good to know. Contract type, inside of here, you can add anything for you. So this is more just like extra information. You can add, like, it's a retainer contract. It's a performance only contract. It's a pay per meeting. Whatever type of contract it is for your type of business, or you can change this to product. And then down here, you can add subscription course or time management trainings or whatever it is that person bought from you. You can then add inside of here so you know which type of product that they closed on, right? That's your deal 1. Only other outcome, which obviously we don't want, but it is deal lost. In deal lost, not much information other than date lost. When did we lose this lead? When did they turn around and say, by the way that we define deal lost is someone saying, hey, please don't contact me again, I'm not interested, after we have presented price. That would be a deal lost. So what was the date that we lost that lead? Who was the lead owner? Who was responsible for that lead? Who lost that deal? Next thing we're going to be focusing on is just why lost. I put this as why lost. Why did we lose it? It could be in there, but to be honest, why lost works for me. We can make this a single select or even maybe a multi-select. This could be your any sort of problems that you've faced in the sales process. So it was a financial thing, they ghosted us, their business partner was being a bit of a dick and didn't close. The spouse came in and said, Johnny, I don't want you spending all this money. It was a trust problem, whatever it is, you can add that inside of here. You can even make this a single select or a multi-select. I'm going to add multi-select because maybe we want to document that it was the business partner and it was financially a problem for the business partner, or it's financially a problem for the spouse, or it was a trust problem from the spouse. Might be a multi-select in that scenario, so hence I've added it as that. You add the field, and that's pretty much it for your custom activities. Then you can go away and you can delete this qualification call, which is the default one that Close added. It's applied to leads right now, which is why it's not letting me delete it. But what you will do is you will clear out all the leads inside of the CRM before you import your own, and then you'll be able to delete that. But that's pretty much it for all of your settings and your customization in terms of statuses and pipelines, as well as your custom activities. We have now got the statuses, which is the lead status representing a lead's current relationship to your company. So once again, not the relationship to the product, not the objections that happen in a sales call, not the relationship to the calls that you have, but specifically the relationship to the company, which is limited to their potential lead. They're either qualified or unqualified. They're either a customer or not, or a cancelled customer, or we haven't got the right data, or they told us to never contact them again, which is a DNC, right? Then you've got your opportunity pipelines and statuses. For your pipelines, you've got a sales pipeline and a contract pipeline. And for your statuses, you've got new lead, discovery call booked, discovery call taken, discovery call not taken, won or lost. All of the different steps in your sales process from where your sales process starts, which is when a new lead comes in. That is documented inside of here. For your contract pipeline, you've then got any steps that happen during your contract pipeline, usually with a start and an end, the same way a sales process works, with contract sent, and then finally we've got onboarded. So that would be the start and the end. In the middle would be contract signed, right? Then for your custom activities, you've not only got your entire sales process documented with all the information, but you've also got all of the things that happen outside of the CRM, out of your control, which isn't involved in the sales process, but more so the marketing process, being enrolled in campaign and outside touch points. Now that is pretty much it. The last thing you have got is smart views. Now what smart views are is they're essentially filters of leads. If we jump into the leads tab here and press add filter, we can filter by any of these different things. So we've got leads, a specific contact. For reference, the difference between a contact and a lead is the business. If you're on a B2B, which you pretty much all are, if you're on B2C, that would be the name of the person. The contact is all the people underneath the lead. So for a B2B example, you have the lead, which is a business, and then you might have 10 different contacts underneath that. But for a B2C example, you would have one contact and one lead, because they would be the same thing. Then you've got your opportunities, which is all at the top left. So your opportunity pipelines, you can filter by those. Different addresses, emails, calls, which you do directly inside of the CRM, any meetings you've had with them, any SMS, any communication just generally, which includes all of these above, notes that you've added, tasks that you've set, workflows, which we'll talk about in separate videos, imports, so maybe you imported a big list of leads that you want to do outbound to, that you can filter by outbounds, and also custom activities, which is what we're going to be creating the majority of our smart views off of. So if we jump into custom activities, won't be here. If I just refresh, and then we go over to add filter, custom activities, all of our custom activities will be here, and we can filter the leads down to people that only have a specific custom activity, which then we can then create the smart views off of. In this video, I'm just going to give you a kind of outline of what we should be doing with our smart views, but it is completely custom and completely open to whatever you want to do with your smart views and how you want to work your day. The way that smart views should work and the way that you should think about them typically, unless you're just looking at them pretty briefly, is as buckets. They should fill up dependent on certain filters, and they should empty dependent on certain activities. That way, your responsibility of your sales team is to come through their smart views and try get rid of all of the different leads inside of there, because they should be doing the activities that then filter them out. So with that being said, the first smart view that we're going to create is kind of like your template or your base that you can then build off of, is going to be new leads that have come into your ecosystem, have engaged with your business in some sort of way, that haven't got a discovery call booked, that need to be contacted and scheduled in for a call. So the way that is going to look, we'll add a filter, add a custom activity, new activity, where a new activity is present. That's the first thing that we're going to do. Then we're going to add a filter, and we're going to say where the lead current status is not any of qualified, not qualified, bad data, customer cancelled, DNC, because it wouldn't make sense for them to be any of these. They would be a potential. If they were qualified, it means we would have taken a discovery call with them. If they were not qualified, we would have taken a discovery call with them and marked them as not qualified. If they were bad data, we wouldn't want to be trying to contact them. If they're a customer, of course, we wouldn't want to try to contact them. If they're a cancelled customer, of course, we really wouldn't want to try get in contact with them. And if they were DNC, then that's another reason as to why we wouldn't want to get in contact. So it's not any of these statuses. We're going to add that in. Then we're going to add another filter for a custom activity where discovery call booked, this is going to say is present. We're going to turn that on, but then we're going to change this to no, meaning a discovery call custom activity booked is not present. But then the key part, so once again, this would work. This would show us all of the leads that haven't booked a discovery call yet, right? That have shown engagement with the business, but haven't booked a discovery call, which is great. But what did we say before? We want it to be buckets that fill up when there are certain conditions. These are the conditions, but they also empty based on us doing certain activities. Usually that activity is going to be some form of communication. So we're going to press add filter, communication. You can do specific communication if you want. So calls, meetings, SMSs, so on and so forth. We're just going to add communication, and we're going to go find the last communication where the date is not within, and it's going to give options like the last 24 hours, last 7 days, and the last 30 days. Now, the reason I'm not going to click the last 24 hours and I'm going to go down to here where I can actually choose a custom time frame is because if we do 24 hours and play out that scenario and a sales rep clocks in at 9 in the morning, he does all his follow-ups by 9:05, and then 24 hours go by, those leads that he contacted aren't going to appear back in this smart view that we're creating until 9:05 the next day, which means if he clocks in at 8 o'clock that morning, he's going to have no leads to follow up with. So I much prefer going over here to the custom field and going like 12 hours. That means if he clocks in at 9, does all of his follow-ups, and then clocks out by 5 p.m., all of his leads are going to appear in there at 9 p.m. and he'll see them when he clocks in the next morning. That's ideally what I'm looking for inside of this smart view. So I'm going to put 12 hours. You can also put 16 hours if you don't want them reappearing of an evening, or your sales reps work for 12 hours or more, right? Press done on that. And then now we're going to save this as a smart view so that we can visit it. All smart views is saved filters. We add the filters. We then come up to the top right. We press save, and we're going to call this leads contacted more than 12 hours ago. You can also add that needs a booking. Then you'll have the sharing options, share it with everyone at acquisition system, so everyone in your team, share it with specific users, where maybe you want to share it with your setters, share it with the group that we created in the basic settings section, or just keep it private to you. I recommend you just share it with everybody because it's a super important field. That is now going to be your first bucket, your first smart view. It is going to show you all the leads, as we say, that have a new activity, that are potential customers that have not booked a call yet, that have not been contacted within 12 hours. And then as you go through these, let's see this, I've created this lead here. Apple contacted John. They've got a new activity. If I was to email and SMS them, it's not going to work right now because I haven't connected any of my fields up. But if I was to email them, this lead would then disappear out of this section. And that means that I can come in here in the mornings and go, awesome, this is empty. I've got nothing to do today. So it almost acts like a virtual to-do list inside of here. Now, what I'm going to do is go through a few extra smart views that I feel like would be good to have. So we come over to leads, we go over here, and we're going to create a discovery calls today, which is essentially where there's a custom activity of discovery call booked. Of course, it needs to be present. And the date of call, which is right here, is today. If we add that I put that as tomorrow, but if we add this is going to show us all of our calls for today. And we can save this and say disco calls today. Now, the reason I want this is because I want to be following up with those leads and making sure that they show to those sales calls, right? It's really important that all my disco calls today show up so I can actually be the most productive sales rep as humanly possible. If you want, you can also add the same filter as before, where any communication date is not within the last 24 hours, meaning I haven't contacted them, I haven't reminded them for the call. That can also be useful to add to something like that. The next thing that I'm going to be adding is going to be discovery calls that are upcoming, which is going to be the same filter, custom activities, where the call is booked. Of course, that needs to be present. And the date of call is after, whereas is after today. Meaning all of the calls that I have got booked after today's date are going to show up here. Now this, I'm going to save this as disco conversations. Share it with everyone in the company. And this is because I believe that you should be communicating with your leads up to the point of the call. So you shouldn't just book a sales call in and then wait for them to show up, because that's where you get no-shows. So you should actually be conversating, asking questions, sending messages, resources, all while you're waiting for that call to actually come up, which is your disco call upcoming. The next thing that I'm going to be adding, which this is so key, even if you don't add any of the others, even if you don't add this one, I think this is so important. You're going to need one of these for sales calls as well, is disco calls that are hot follow-ups, right? This then essentially means these are discovery calls that we have taken, but they haven't moved on to the next step of the process. So this is going to look like adding a filter. We're obviously going to need the discovery call. So discovery call, well, it's not going to be booked. We definitely need that, of course, but we're going to actually do discovery call is taken. So we've taken the discovery call, and the outcome is any of follow-up. We need to follow up with these leads. They were marked as follow-up. And of course, so that would be enough. That would show us all the leads. But then we want to add on top of this, we want to say where there is not the next step of the process. So it is not a deal won or there is not a deal lost if you were closing right off the back of your discovery calls. But for us, we're booking calls in. So I'm going to say there is not a sales call booked present. Then I want to filter out all my lead statuses as well that I don't want in there. So I'll say the current status is not any of, well, I don't want any of the not qualified leads in there, because obviously I don't need to follow up with those leads. Obviously I don't want bad data in there. I don't want my customers, don't want my cancelled customers, don't want DNC. But if they're potential or qualified, that's fine, because I'm going to want to be following up with these leads and I would have taken the call. Usually it would have been marked as qualified. You can also filter out potential here. Potential isn't really going to be relevant because you should have marked them as qualified or not qualified. If you haven't really established that they are qualified or not qualified yet, they may still be potential, so you could leave that unticked. But I want to filter out all of these because they're not necessary to be in this smart view. And then you can also do communication is, once again, where the last communication date is not within the last 24 hours, meaning it is a bucket that I can then go through and clear. This would then be saved as disco hot follow up. meaning all of the people that I've taken a discovery call with that have not booked in a sales call, but that probably are qualified, and I need to get them to the next step of the process, right? Now, that's pretty much it for your smart views in terms of what you're going to be looking at in a discovery call sense. You would then want to repeat these three. I'm not going to do it now just for the time of the video, but you would then repeat these three just for the sales call steps, so they're not moving on to the next step of the process. And then that would be pretty much it. The other things that you can have is managerial views. So I'm going to delete these right now just so we haven't got all of these. You won't need any of these closed ones. They're not going to be set up correctly for your process. So you can delete all the default closed ones. Now that you've got all your default smart views deleted, let's talk about managerial views. So what actually is a managerial smart view? Well, a managerial smart view essentially allows your sales managers, or even you if you're managing your sales team, to jump into a smart view that ensures that reps are following the sales process correctly. So what we then got to do to make that smart view is reverse engineer the process and go, well, how do we know that a sales rep isn't following a sales process correctly? Well, if we know that they should have this in here, which means they're following up with all new leads, this could be a managerial review as well. Are they following up with leads? Are they trying to get them booked on the call? Then they get them booked on the call, that's fine. Let's say that they haven't conversated here, which isn't too big of a deal. The next step that we're going to be seeing is that they haven't documented whether the call was taken or the call was not taken. That would show that they're not using the sales process and not using the CRM. So let's create a view for that. Jump into the leads, where we create our smart views. We go add filter, custom activity, where a discovery call is booked and the date of the call is before today, because if it's on today's date and we're looking at all the calls for today, the sales rep might not have taken that call. It might be a late call. We might not have followed that process yet. So we want it before today to make sure that we're only looking at leads that should have gone through the sales process. We then go add a filter where the custom activities discovery call taken is not present, and discovery call custom activities discovery call not taken is not present either. That then will show me all the leads that have booked a call before today, and the sales rep should have taken that call and either marked it as show or no show, or in this case taken or not taken, but the sales rep hasn't. We can then save this as and do MGR notes needed discovery. By the way, you can repeat this exact same process for a sales call. So if you wanted to make sure that your sales reps are following the process, you could just set this up in the exact same way. You would just change the discovery call here to sales call and use your other steps. But now every single morning for my sales reps, I can actually jump in here, click on my manager view and go, awesome. There's no leads in here, which means all of the discovery calls that were taken before today have been marked as either taken or not taken, which means if I jump in to any of those individual leads, I can see the exact outcome of the calls. So that's another way that smart views can be used, is for managers. With smart views covered, that is pretty much it for Close CRM. We've gone through all the settings, we've configured all the basic settings that you're all set up, we've created your statuses and pipelines, your custom activities, and created smart views on the left-hand side so that you've got your leads all nice and organized and you can make sure these buckets are filling up and emptying every single day. The only thing really left is this left-hand side. What does this do? What does these basic buttons do? Inbox, this is where all your new notifications will come in. So if you've set any reminders on a lead, if you've got any new emails, so inbound emails coming in, they'll appear in here. If you've got any calls, you'll be able to see them inside of here. It's just a house of notifications, essentially. Your opportunity pipeline, we've already talked about this. This is where your two pipelines are, and you can see all the deals in a Kanban view. Your leads, by the way, leads are companies that you're working with. Contacts are people underneath the companies. Workflows, which we'll talk about in a separate video. This is essentially automatically contacting leads in a set series of steps. We can talk about that in another video and how to work around that, but they're very, very useful. Conversations, these are all just the recordings and meetings that you've had of all your different conversations that you've had. And then reporting, which we'll also go over in another video. So you pretty much know Close like the back of your hand at this point. In terms of specific tutorials and what your daily workflow should look like, I'm going to be recording separate videos on that. But for the setup, you're all sorted. I hope this was helpful. If you've got any questions, send me a message on Slack. But overall, you're pretty much set. Just remember, this is a template. We will give you specific recommendations and specific advice on your Close setup and what you should be using. But as a baseline, this is a really great place to start. So as I say, hope you enjoy, and I'll see you in the next training.